Hello. In this video, we're just going to cover basic Epi-Pens you might have or your patients. So historically, epinephrine had to be held in their leg for 10 seconds. This is actually my box for Epi-Pen for bees and wasps. It's only 3 seconds now in the leg. So that's awesome. So when you get an Epi-Pen, you're going to get a trainer and you'll get 2 doses of Epi. Epi will always be prescribed as a 2-pack. 80% of the patients only need 1 dose, but that means 20% will need the second dose. Giving drugs through the muscle IM can take up to 10 minutes to kick into central circulation. So if they're not showing you an improvement in their situation, a decrease in their signs and symptoms, a bump up in their heart rate, a bump up in their blood pressure, just realize it's impossible to be allergic to an Epi-Pen. We used to label this adrenaline, so we have adrenaline in our body. You cannot be allergic to an Epi-Pen just like you can't be allergic to dopamine. They're naturally occurring hormones in our body. Some of the patients realize when they're allergic to things, their heart rate goes up and they go into sinus tach. So just realize you're giving them pure adrenaline. So just tell them, I'm going to give you an adrenaline rush. Because some of them think when their heart races from this, they're actually allergic to it. But it's a naturally occurring hormone. So they can't be allergic to it, which is amazing. Now, the Epi-Pen will always be prescribed as a 2-pack, and 80% only need 1 dose. Epinephrine, when it's given for anaphylaxis like this, is one of the few drugs that's weight-based different for pediatric patients. Across the board, if a pediatric patient weighs less than 40 kilos, everything's weight-based. So, but with the Epi-Pen, it's slightly different. If this child weighs less than 30 kilos, they're going to take the Epi-Pen Junior. And if they're greater than 30 kilos, the typical Epi-Pen. It's exactly half the dose. The typical Epi-Pen is 0.3 milligrams at a dose of 1 to 1,000. Very concentrated Epi. This is half the dose, 0.15 milligrams of 1 to 1,000. So now, when they come, it'll be S together, like a little S. Now, this one's fake, these are real. So there's going to be an expiration date on your Epi, and there's also going to be a color menu to see if it's expired. What's funny is they tell you if this is discolored not to use it, but they don't give you any measurement to what discolored actually is. So just look at the expiration dates. Now this one's real and this one's fake. So the rhyme to the Epi-Pen is blue to the sky, orange to the thigh. So you just flick off the little blue cap. Now, when I give it to myself, I'm just going to stand up. When you give an Epi-Pen, you come in with a swing. When the meds are in the leg, it'll make a click sound. So I'm going to pretend there's a long, thin IM needle in my leg. Okay, blue to the sky, orange to the thigh. Blue to the sky, orange to the thigh. If you have to, go right through the clothing. Here we go. Ow, there's a long IM needle in my leg. Ow, ow. After 3 seconds, they really won't feel it. Pull it out, give them a little rub. This should kick into central circulation in no more than 10 minutes. If they're not showing you a gross improvement and their heart rate bumps up, their blood pressure shoots up, the signs and symptoms start to diminish, give them the next dose in the opposite thigh and make sure they go to the emergency room. In the ER, we're going to start an IV. We're going to give them a lot of IV fluid to flush those toxins out. They might get Benadryl as a histamine blocker, Pepsid as an H2 blocker. They might get Zyrtec for the orbital edema and steroids as anti-inflammatories. Now, so I got stung last summer by a little mean wasp on my nose and my face blew up. So I worked in the ICU for 20 years, so of course I didn't go to the ER right away. So first I went to CVS and I got some Benadryl and some Pepsid, and then I went home and then I couldn't drive because I was sleepy from the Benadryl. And then my friend came over and saw my face was huge and you could barely see my eyes. So then I took a shower and then I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts and I finally got to the ER. So that's what they did. They gave me a ton of IV fluid, a liter, steroids, anti-inflammatory, Benadryl as a histamine blocker, Pepsid as an H2 blocker. They told me to pick up some Zyrtec. And about 4 days later, when the steroids wore off, my face blew up again. But this time the edema was hard. And I thought that was worse. So not expecting the whole thing, I went to urgent care. They did the whole thing again, the IV fluid, the whole thing. So just know, I'm one of those 20% of people that has to get that second dose. Mine was 4 days later. But realize people can die from anaphylaxis. You cannot overdose on epinephrine. And if you had someone who weighed under 30 kilos and all you had was an Epi-Pen, just realize you can die from anaphylaxis. When that strikes, most people are going to show you that they're having an allergic reaction about 10 minutes into the situation, 10 to 15 minutes. Some people show you immediately, some 30 minutes after. But most allergic reaction, just like if you hung blood and they were allergic to it, usually happens in the first 10 to 15 minutes. The patients don't present the same. Different systems get involved. Skin likes to get involved sometimes. Sometimes you'll see them with hives, sometimes you won't. In most cases with the anaphylaxis, their face swell or part of their face. Sometimes it's their whole face, sometimes it's just their eyes, their lips. Keep in mind, a human being's tongue is the size of their hand. And the tongue's a problem in here all day long. We just don't realize how big our tongue is because it's set so far back. Once their tongue swells, you're gonna lose their airway. I saw it once on this lady, you could see it sticking out of her airway. She's basically getting strangled internally. So realize they're not gonna be in a good mood. They're gonna be uncomfortable. You might see hives, whatever, say if it was their arm that got bit, it's probably gonna be very edematous. If they ate something, they might start vomiting. They might have chest pain, epigastric pain, but more than one system's gonna get involved. As long as they have an Epi-Pen prescribed, give it. And there's a chance, a 20% chance you might have to give a second dose. So when I was little, these things didn't exist. A friend of mine in high school had a peanut allergy, and my mother actually thought he was lying. I know, isn't it hysterical? And subsequently, he also had asthma, but that's a separate story. So anyway, these things didn't exist. There was no peanut-free table. We were allergic to poison ivy and really not much more. And so parents are definitely anxious about using this with their children, and I completely understand. And that's what happened with the little Abu-Qs. This guy was an engineer apparently, and his children had anaphylaxis, so he made a talking Epi-Pen. Now this thing's cool. So when you pull it apart, it talks you through. This is how the Abu-Q works. When you pull it apart, it talks you through.
This trainer contains no needle or drug. If you are ready to use, pull off red safety guard. To inject, place black end against outer thigh, then press firmly and hold in place for 5 seconds.
Okay, I'll give it to myself. I'll go right through my clothing.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Injection complete.
There's still a 20% chance you might have to give the second dose, but it talks them through the whole event. How easy. So if you know someone that's suffering from anaphylaxis, I have heard almost every reason on earth to suffer anaphylaxis, from dust, breathing in cold air, exercise. They're mildly allergic to something, they exercise, they rev up their heart rate, it kicks in. I've heard every form of seafood, eggs, chicken, citrus, kale, pineapples, who knows? If this person is suffering from anaphylaxis and they have an Epi-Pen prescribed, go ahead and administer it. If anyone ever suffers anaphylaxis, send them to the emergency room. If they have an Epi-Pen, administer it before they even get there, and just know they might get the second dose when they get there. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day. Bye. Now I'm going to use a fake Epi-Pen on Kyle, the mannequin. So, blue to the sky, orange to the thigh. Flick that off. Now, pediatric patients are going to get a lot of IM injections in the ER. This is not an uncommon thing. So I sort of lay on them so they don't move. What I don't want to happen is he moves and the IM needle breaks off in his leg. So blue to the sky, orange to the thigh. Okay, I'm going to lay on you a little. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Oh, good, Kyle, you didn't move. Thank you. Give him a little rub. This can take up to 10 minutes to kick into central circulation, and that's how you give pediatric patients or someone else an IM injection. Have a great day.